Hi, my name is Mihika Kandula, and this is the proposition reply speech. Now, some of the anticipated proposition arguments is going to be the principle of accountability, the idea that offensive literature hurts people, and that you can show the truths without targeting a certain group. And then the opposition arguments are going to be the idea that deeply offensive literature looks different for everyone, the principle of autonomy, and that offensive literature should still matter. At the end of today's debate, side proposition has continued the narrative that it is not morally justified that targeting certain people and hurting certain people should come below autonomy. Side opposition believes that autonomy is justified even when it means targeting certain groups. Because we believe in the principle of helping society, no matter who you are, I've never been prouder to end today's debate. In today's speech, I'll be going over the framework clarifications, the principle, the practical, then the voters, and the burden. Now let's go over the key framework clarifications that must be made. First, on the idea of deeply offensive literature. We tell you that deeply offensive literature looks like language that targets certain groups. The opposition's main concern is that who is in charge of determining which groups get affected and which groups don't. We always thought it was general society, and we gave you two examples, the knife in Serbia, the laws of Mamun in India, and even at your highest ground, we tell you that it's not our burden to determine how these policies and ins and outs works. After all, it is a beliefs motion. Now let's go over the clash. We think the principal clash needs to be the most important thing on your ballot because today's motion talks about a moral obligation, thus we must have a principle justification. What do we tell you on our principle of accountability? We tell you that we think it's principally unjust for books to target a certain group and to hurt a supergroup, and that we uphold accountability by making sure those languages and those words never get met towards those groups in the first place. Side opposition tells you that their world also has accountability, it's just after the offensive literature gets published. So now the comparative becomes, should accountability come before a book gets published or after a book gets published? We always thought it was before a book gets published because it helps on the long term as well as the short term. It means that these certain groups will never get targeted against and will never get experienced violence towards, thus we outweigh on the time frame. Then on side opposition's principle of autonomy, they tell you that people's voices deserve to be heard because every opinion is a certain opinion. We tell you that there needs to be certain limits of autonomy in order to protect their people, and we give you the principle contract as a way to, or the principle of social contract as a way to justify our explanation. We think that autonomy needs to have limits, especially when it means protecting their people. Side opposition has failed to interact with this argument that if autonomy hurts the people, should autonomy be allowed? We always thought protecting society should be of utmost importance, and thus we think that autonomy should be wiped off your flow. Then on the practical clash, because we still think it's important in today's debate, we tell you that offensive literature can hurt people and will cause violence towards certain groups because we've seen it in the past. Side proposition has told you that their world, or rather both worlds, has violence. It's because, however, in their world, violence occurs through social media platforms or other platforms. We tell you that if you weigh this argument on probability, because the chance that some violence is limited is always going to be happening on our side, and that on side opposition side, they morally allow targeting of certain groups. Then on our argument, our side opposition's argument that offensive literature still matters, we think that offensive literature should never matter if it means they're hurting certain groups and hurting certain people. Our third substantive argument was all about how there's different mechanisms to get the truth out that doesn't include getting to hurt people. We've always thought that that was the key path towards our ballot. Now, how do we win today's debate? What are the voters and how do we meet the burdens? Side proposition's burden was which side best helps society. Two mechanisms and voters to how we do so. First, we hold people who target groups accountable, which we thought was morally right. And second, we protect people from violence. Side opposition's burden was which side protects oppression or expression. We thought that we always protect expression just through other mechanisms that wasn't offensive literature. For those reasons, so proud to propose.